Mini episode 324 of the FDH Lounge is brought to you by TV Howl, your home on the web for coverage of today's television scene, and a look at the history of the medium is covered by big-time TV critic Adam Buckman. Follow them on the web at tvhowl.com.
The FDH Lounge. You want to schedule your life around it.
A long time ago, on a gloomy, wet Cleveland spring night, two men stand alone amidst the late-night drizzle. Their voices echo across the vacant station parking lot as they debate the merits of the great American radio show that have been missing for far too long. On that night, an idea was born. That idea became the FDH Lounge. Welcome to the FDH Lounge.
Welcome to mini episode number 324 of the FDH Lounge. This is FDH managing partner Rick Morris here with another of our FDH Lounge series retrospectives of Breaking Bad. Today we're examining the top adrenaline moments of the series, starting with number 10 and going down to number 1. In mini episode number 323, we broke down number 20 through number 11. More than perhaps any other drama in TV history, Breaking Bad specialized in providing edge-of-your-seat moments to viewers. Here's our top 10. Number 10. Yeah, magnets, bitch. When you've killed your arch-nemesis but his laptop has been seized by the police and may well incriminate you, how do you destroy the evidence now in law enforcement custody? Well, if Jesse Pinkman's doing your game planning, you acquire a humongous magnet and from the outside of the police station, destroy a good portion of the evidence room. Fittingly, the caper, while successful in wrecking the laptop, did more harm than good since the computer was encrypted and unavailable for police examination anyway, and the magnet also destroyed picture frames that had been hiding the money trail for Mike's henchmen. Oops! Number 9, the train heist. When Crazy Lydia suggested robbing a train to get the methylamine needed for continuation of large-scale meth cooking, the idea was just crazy enough to work, as Walt, Jesse, and Todd were able to take advantage of the train stoppage caused by Bill Burr's wonderful Flim Flam Man character to suck out the chemical they needed and pipe water back in its place. When the train began moving quicker than anticipated, Walt's stubborn refusal to call off Jesse and Todd jeopardized their safety, but each narrowly escaped unharmed. The moment of jubilation with the crew afterwards was broken up by the waving boy on the bicycle who rode up. Taking the no witnesses credo a little too far, Todd had his first Ricky Hitler moment on the show when he punctuated this breathless moment by quickly gunning down this child. Number 8. 2 decades after killing the first chicken brother in Los Pollos Hermanos, Hector finishes off Gus with Walt's help. The phrase, "the enemy of my enemy is my friend," has long been around, but Walt applied it more convincingly in the Season 4 finale than anyone else you'll ever see. Granted, Hector had little to live for at that point, but convincing someone who hates you to execute a murder-suicide bomb plot on your behalf? Well played, Heisenberg, well played. The moments leading up to the activation of the IED were super tense, and even after the explosion, seeing Gus walk into the hallway was truly unbelievable until you saw the other half of his bomb-ravaged face and his final collapse to the ground in that very traumatized nursing home. Number 7. Victor finds that Gus's disappointment cuts deep. In one of the series' greatest cliffhangers, Walt dispatched Jesse to kill Albuquerque's only other elite meth chef, his old assistant Gale, so that Gus would have to call off the dogs out of sheer necessity. Walt's plot worked, although Jesse was rounded up by Victor in the aftermath, but the tense wait at the super lab, supervised by Mike, carried with it the question of how the chicken and meth executive would react to being checkmated. Not well, as it turned out, especially for Victor. His carelessness in being seen by the looky-loos in Gale's apartment complex made him the perfect scapegoat for Gus's rage, as the most shocking, sudden motion in the history of the program materialized when Gus grabbed his henchman from behind and sliced his neck with a box cutter. That was harsh. Number 6. In a shockingly short period of time since his realization that Heisenberg is his brother-in-law, Hank and Walt put their cards on the table in the garage in a rage-fueled scene. As Walt proclaimed in one of his classes, chemistry is the study of transformation. Somehow, Hank was blind to the transformation in Walt as Heisenberg, the manifestation of Walt's pettiness and megalomania, came to the surface when the cancer was diagnosed. Interestingly, Hank did guess that Walt was having a midlife crisis and cheating on Skyler when the couple had their separation, but it was Walt's actions that he misdiagnosed. Notwithstanding Walt's sudden wealth, which was explained away by a run of successful card counting, Hank would never have guessed in a million years that his milquetoast brother-in-law was the great white whale that he'd been chasing. Keep in mind that this was despite knowing of Walt's connection to Jesse Pinkman, who Hank knew was involved in peddling the blue meth and the theft of lab equipment from Walt's lab at school, and it was despite knowing that another chemist in town, the assassinated Gale, had addressed WW in a book inscription, the same thread that not only should have told him something earlier, but ultimately did when he found that same book on Walt's crapper. Like Mike, who underestimated Walt in the end, despite vowing never to do so and ended up gut-shot because of it, Hank was blinded by a sense that Walt was incapable of doing what he did. But in Hank's case, he was taken in by Walt in terms of both his morality and his capacity for alpha male drug running, and it was the former that really cut to the bone. The confrontation in Hank's garage, which seemed impossible even as it was unfolding because it came so soon after the revelation, lived up to the years-long anticipation about how explosive it would be. Number 5. Hank is within mere feet of both Walt and Jesse in that unbearably tense scene with the RV in the junkyard. The aforementioned moment of exposure between Hank and Walt carried such weight because Walt was scurrying for so long just to stay one step ahead of his brother-in-law, Asac Schrader. Tensest of all these moments came when Jesse went off half-baked and lured Hank right to the junkyard when he heard that Walt was going to have the RV, which was squarely on Hank's radar, destroyed. Walt and Jesse scurried just inside right before Hank showed up, leaving them trapped inside with only the legal bluffs that Jesse could shout out and the junkyard owner could reinforce to keep Hank temporarily at bay. Nothing, it seemed, was going to keep Hank from storming that camper and finding his brother-in-law exposed as the mastermind within, until said mastermind remembered the phrase "better call Saul" and had his lawyer's receptionist phone in a false accident report on Marie. The dynamic duo made their greatest escape to that point as Walt sacrificed another chunk of his deteriorating soul in the process. Number 4. Hector teaches Gus the meaning of blood for blood. In the only flashback moment to make our list in the late 1980s, Gus and his partner Max were summoned poolside for a sit-down at Don Eladio's Mexican estate. The Los Pollos Hermanos gang had slipped some meth to Eladio's cartel underlings, seeking to get his attention for a sales pitch. But what the drug lord had in mind was far more brutal, as his initial fake friendliness gave way to menace. It looked like Gus, the brains of the operation, was up against it, as Max was frantically pleading for his life when the sound suddenly cut out and the scene moved to a silent portrayal of events. From off-camera, discreetly at the other end of the pool, Hector shot Max in the head, killing him instantly and causing his blood and brain matter to flow directly into the pool. Enraged, Gus charged Hector, but he was tackled quickly, and he had to endure a final lecture and threat from Don Eladio. From that point forward, although Gus had to play ball with the cartel for the most part, he pushed back when he could, and after he had the twins taken out, he felt free to visit Hector and start his campaign of taunting him. As previously established, this campaign eventually cost him his life, but not before avenging Max's blood many times over. Number 3, 3 simple words: the cartel massacre. Gus Fring, could it get any better than that? Killing Don Eladio in the same pool that Max's brain matter once poured into? In a series filled with opaque twists and turns, this sequence ranks near the very top of the list. With Gus coming to the realization that his series of violent skirmishes with the cartel was going to end very badly for his operation, he agreed to terms that constituted naked surrender, presenting Jesse as the cartel's new meth chef. What was most impressive about his effort was his ability to suppress his hatred of Don Eladio and his associates long enough to execute the plan, because it hinged on the same basis that many of Walt's plots did over the course of the series: having the humility to do whatever is necessary to get your opponent to underestimate you. At no time did Don Eladio permit Gus, Mike, or Jesse to have guns on them, so he felt no physical fear of them. At the poolside party that Eladio threw to celebrate the new business arrangement, Gus even took pains to give the appearance of a small pout, as too much enthusiasm about going along with Eladio would only have raised suspicion. He took the first shot out of the bottle of poison tequila that he presented to the cartel leadership and waited the proper amount of time to get to the bathroom to vomit up the substance and give the treatment that he'd previously taken a fighting chance to work. When he emerged, bodies were dropping already, and he had the joy of seeing Don Eladio advance towards him in a confused rage before plummeting into the pool. A strangulation by Mike and a brief shooting scene capped off the chaos, which ended with Jesse gunning a getaway car. It was an absolutely breathtaking series of events. Number 2, in the biggest moment of consequence in the entire series, the Aryans break up Hank's moment of triumph at Tahajali. Like the series of events leading up to the box cutter moment, this sequence stretched across 2 episodes, going into the climax of the entire series, Ozymandias. Previously summoned by Walt as part of his contract on Jesse, Uncle Jack's meth Nazis didn't heed his request to stay away once he spotted Hank and Gomi. So after Hank's moment of triumph in apprehending the great and powerful Heisenberg, Jesse's previous prediction that Walt would always come out smarter and luckier manifested itself in the end. Well, kind of. Sure, he got away clean, at least until he got home, but he could not stop Hank from being killed. It's a measure of how heart-stopping and heart-rending this moment was, that Walt's subsequent reiteration of the contract on Jesse's life and his taunting of Jesse about letting Jane die were almost afterthoughts. We, the viewers, spent a week in Walt's shoes and waiting for the start of Ozymandias. We desperately wanted to believe that Hank and Gomi could survive the clash somehow, but we knew it was impossible, and it was, and it hurt terribly, but it was such compelling television. Number 1, Hank has 1 minute. In a series that threw a tremendous amount of twists at the viewers, consider this one. The top 2 adrenaline moments on our list primarily concerned Hank's well-being, not Walt's. Well over a year before Hank's ultimate demise in the desert, he was beset by the cartel twins who were sicked on him by Gus, but not before Gus gave him a fighting chance with a phone call informing him that he had 1 minute until the attack commenced. What Gus had no way of knowing was that Hank was on suspension as of that day, the consequence for beating the snot out of Jesse after realizing that the aforementioned phone call about Marie's alleged accident was a fake. But future ASAC Schrader was not unarmed, not when he had his trusty van, which he popped into reverse and used to separate the torso and legs of the assassin shooting at him from behind. From there, he fetched Stumpy's discarded gun, only to find that he was shooting into impenetrable body armor in the next stage of the firefight. He was gravely wounded and about to get hacked into Hank's stew when he clutched a bullet off the ground right in the nick of time and blew the head off of the remaining assailant just before the slicing and dicing was about to begin. Hank didn't even have 2 years left to live before his next bout of lead poisoning finished him immediately, but his efforts in surviving this scene provided the greatest all-time adrenaline moment in the history of Breaking Bad. Thank you for tuning in to FDH Lounge mini-episode number 324.
As we bring the show to a close, we would like to extend our deepest gratitude to NBC, CBS, ABC, Fox, all Clear Channel affiliates, TNT, TBS, USA, UPN, Deadspin.com, YouTube.com, YTMND.com, MySpace.com, various blogs, Fox News, CNN, CNBC, MSNBC, IamBoard.com, Billboard.com, Google.com, ESPN, ESPN2, ESPN News, ESPN Classic, NBA TV, NFL Network, Sports Time Ohio, Athlon Magazine, Comedy Central, Cartoon Network, The Boomerang Channel, QVC, BET, The Spice Channel, Steno Notebooks, Manwich, Papermate Office Supplies, waitresses, strippers, bartenders, garbage men, janitors, microwave popcorn, the writers of The Office, Scrubs, Entourage, My Name is Earl, Oz, Metalocalypse and the Boondocks, Aquafina, and the periodic table of elements.